Welcome everyone to today's webcast of Simplified Human Capital Management by leveraging Scissortail HCM. My name is Sherry Bleho and I'll be your host for today's meeting. I do have a bit of a cold, so bear with me. I appreciate your patience. Systems that promote collaboration in your organization are just a must. The Scissortail HCM accomplishes that in a couple of ways. First, it offers a single database system. Most products will talk about single entry, having interfaces between distinctly separate modules, but Scissortail allows your entire HR and payroll team to work with one common set of information. Second, collaboration can only occur when all appropriate team members have access to their part of the data. And Scissortail does not come to the market with user counts. Additionally, communication of changes to information is facilitated with just phenomenal workflow management. And Jessica Morency will be showing you some of that here in just a couple of minutes. I want to give you just a few facts about Kronos, the product that powers Scissortail HCM. They have more than 40 million people on this product. More than half of the Fortune 1000 company uses a Kronos solution every day. Kronos was founded in 1977 in Massachusetts, and in 2012 they introduced this entirely web-based workforce management solution that adds employee and also added employee scheduling, labor analytics, human resources, and payroll, as well as hiring capabilities to its suite of enterprises. Kronos has grown to become a 4,500 employee company with offices all around the world. So Scissortail powered by Kronos is definitely a safe choice. CS3 added Scissortail HCM to our portfolio a little over a year ago. We've implemented hundreds of HR and payroll solutions such as Abra, Sage HRMS, Sage 100 Payroll for over 20 years. We reviewed all the web-based payroll and HR products that were available and decided that Scissortail HCM would be the best product for our clients who were looking for current technology and browser-based solutions. So I'm delighted to introduce Jessica Morency, who will be walking you through the presentation today. Jessica is the guru of all things HR here at CS3. She has years of experience as both support of software and as an end user. She also worked for Sage for 8 years, and that gives her great insight with all HR payroll solutions. Plus, she's walked a mile in your shoes, so she understands the day-to-day pressure in both payroll and HR. As we move through today's presentation, if you have any questions, please use your question and answer option in your WebEx menu, and we'll address all of them at the end of today's presentation. Since this is a rather large audience, you've all been placed on mute, but we're happy to take any questions that you all may have. So Jessica, I am going to make you presenter.
Okay. And can you hear me okay, Sherry?
I can.
Great.
So if you'll just share your screen with us now.
Okay. So you should be looking at the A brand recruiting page. Do you see that?
We're there. Thank you.
Perfect. All right. So as Sherry mentioned, Scissortail HCM is a complete end-to-end solution. We are going to kind of take a look through the employee life cycle in the next 45 minutes or so. And I'm going to go pretty high level, but as Sherry said, if there's any questions that you have, please feel free to type them into the chat. We'll address them at the end. We should have plenty of time for questions then. What we're looking at here is a sample recruiting page. So starting with the recruiting of a potential new hire is where we're going to start our discussion, and then we'll move on to what it looks like on the back end for the employees and the managers to use the system and interact with the information that you provide, and also what it looks like from an administrative administration standpoint. So starting with the recruiting, this is something that you'll put into your website, so it will match the branding of your company page, so clients or candidates won't feel like they're going to a separate system just to apply for a job with you. So you can set your home screen to look however. This is just one example. Every time an applicant comes to you or an existing employee comes to your site to apply for a position, they're actually creating a profile so they can come back and apply for other positions or update the information they've provided. Makes it a bit easier for them not to have to do the work twice, and so it's a better application experience for them. So there's an area for returning applicants to come in and take a look at the information and reapply or apply for other positions. We're going to take a look into these search all openings. You can let them search in different ways by keywords, job titles, showing locations. I'm just going to look at all. I've got 3 here in my sample environment. So clicking on the first one, this is something that you'll be able to tailor to the specific job to include whatever information you'd like. They can apply for the position. I'm a returning applicant, so it's asking me for my information. So I'm just going to enter that in here so I don't have to do the work twice. I've already put it in the first time I applied. If they didn't have an existing application with you, they would simply create a user profile at this point. The application that we have available in this is obviously just a sample. You can tailor this to include the specific tabs that are important to you. You can create custom fields if you want to ask them for specific documentation or information. You can place knockout questions in here that will stop them in their tracks if they get to a question that they don't answer correctly or won't qualify for the position. They won't be allowed to continue. So you can decide to put those types of options into the application. There is the ability to populate from LinkedIn so that they don't have to type the information in. They can parse what's available on their LinkedIn profile, or they could upload their resume in PDF, Word, I believe text file. They can upload that. It will, again, parse the information so they're not having to do as much manual data entry. It will do most of that for them. And then they can go through the tabs as you've designed to fill in any additional information that's important for the position. Once they've done all of that, they can review their information and they can save that. This saves their information as a candidate within the system. It sends them, if you want, an automatic communication to thank them for applying and whatever text you decide to include in that automated communication. And it also alerts the recruiter that somebody has applied for a position. So I'm going to log on so that we can see what it looks like from an administrator's perspective once that applicant data comes into the back end for review. I've logged on as the administrator, so before I get into the recruiting, I just want to explain a little bit about what we're looking at here in the navigation within Scissortail so that you can kind of get a feel for what I'm doing and why I'm going certain places. So every user that logs into the system, whether they're an employee manager or an administrator, has the ability to set up a customized dashboard. And this is something they can do as their job needs change. So an example of somebody doing benefits enrollment, they might want to see benefits enrollment menus here on the home screen to make it easier for them for that open enrollment period. And so it can be switched in and out very simply by clicking on the Edit tabs. I can create multiple tabs. Right now I just have a main tab and a recruiting tab, but I could put one here for benefits or for whatever training, whatever else might be important to me. And then changing these dashboards up is as simple as dragging and dropping. Oops. I can do it. So I can drag and drop it. Once I hit save, it then makes it accessible on the home page. And again, this is something that every user has the ability to do so that it's as easy as possible for them to work within the system. So I'm not going to save this because it's just my sample environment, but just so you know, that's why we see all of these different widgets here. The other option you have is to collapse them all, which I have because I think it looks nicer, but you can choose to have all of these open so that when you log in, you're not having to open each individual one. You can just scroll down and get to the next items that are on the dashboard. So in keeping with the recruitment to retire timeline, I'm going to go back now to the recruiting tab. So Kathy is my administrator. She's also my recruiter. I've got some applicants that have applied for positions, and now I want to take a look and see what that information looks like. I have a nice little picture over here because we all like pictures instead of words. Sometimes it's easier to see. I can kind of take a look and see who I have in what stage of the application process. I have a quick link, which you'll see on some of the other users that I log in as well. These quick links can be tailored to the user. So this recruitment, we want to take a look at job requisitions and applicants. And this just makes it easy for me to go through the system. So all of these quick links are hyperlinks, so I can click on it and go to that area of the system. The menus across the top are also used to navigate, but let's face it, clicking on one link instead of coming into here and going down to here, and it's just much easier user experience. So when I want to look at a specific candidate, I've got all of my applicants here. I can look at this in many different ways. One of the nice things about Scissortail is that the reporting is basically a no-brainer. Every screen that you're going to look at is also a report. So instead of having to say, gee, I'd love to have a list of my applicants, but I also want to include some other information about the job they've applied for, or their email address, or their phone number, or the hiring stage that they're at, what you can do is come into the select columns, pick from a list of available columns, which is pretty extensive. As you can see, I'll do the fast scroll through this. Pretty extensive list of information that can be included. And anything that I might select to be included will then show up here on the screen. So this essentially becomes my report. I have the option to choose whatever information I'd like to see. I can come into settings and I can save those settings. I can save as many different views or reports as I want. So I might have a need for one specific set of information, but I also need to have another set of information for the hiring manager over in accounting that wants it displayed differently, or whatever. So you can create as many different views or reports as you would like, so that you can easily come in here and say, you know what, I don't want to see that one today. I want to see the accounting version of this. And you can just select that other version. It'll pop up on the screen. You don't have to redo it every time. Things can be, the pages can be grouped. You can easily delete information. You can decide how much you want to see on a page. You can do different types of search depending on the page that you're on. You can search by a date range, or by a specific calendar period. Any of these pages that we see that are available for reporting, you can also then export the report. So you've decided on the information, you've set your parameters. Now I can export it to whatever type of output I want to work with. Maybe I want to put it into Excel and do some advanced analytics and calculations on it, or a PDF and send it over to somebody else for review. Okay. So as you go through this presentation today, you're going to see that's going to come up in most of the screens that we view, the ability to view the data on screen and also turn it into a report that can be saved and used over and over again. Okay. So from an applicant's perspective, I'm going to click on View Applicant. I can see all of the information that they've submitted here on screen. I can see what applications they've put in for which jobs. If I click into the specific job, I can see who else has applied, so I can compare applications. And actually, this is another way to navigate through. I can always see where I'm at within the system, but I can click on the back button. It'll bring me right back to the next page. Makes it easier to get around here. So I can look at the application itself. I can see information that they've entered for me, any custom information I've asked for, any additional documents that I've asked them to share with me. Maybe it's their license or some type of certification. I can look at their resume, all the information that they've included. I can download the formatted version of their resume if I want to take a look at that or print it out for the actual interview. All of the communications that are sent to and from the applicant, calendar invites for the interviews can also be used. So I can, if I wanted to send out an interview to the hiring manager as well as to the candidates, I can do all of that right from Scissortail. I don't have to open up Outlook and do it separately. If I wanted to, just for an example, I can see when the interview is going to be scheduled, what type of interview it is. I can add participants, so if there's multiple people that are going to sit and have a panel interview, I can add multiple folks for that. And then I can send this as a email with that iCal attachment so that they can open it and save it to their calendar. I can email out directly, and these emails that we're talking about can be automated, so you can have that automation of the thanks for your application. We can automate the thanks but no thanks letter if you decide to hire somebody and you want to let the other candidates know that they weren't selected. You can create an automatic template. I have one here in my sample environment, but just to give you an idea of what it looks like, you can decide who it comes from, what the subject looks like. You can pull in information that exists in the database, so it does a mail merge, so you can use their name instead of having to type it over and over. It'll pull the email address on file. It'll pull the fields that you've asked, and then you can use a templated email that you've created, or you can type over it if you decide to say something different in this particular instance. So it makes it easy for you to communicate with the candidates, adding attachments if there's something that you need them to review or complete and submit back to you, testing or that type of thing. Okay. So you can create as many different auto communications as you want to help have a consistent message, make it easier for you to communicate and keep up with the applicants. All of those communications are stored here, so you can always look back and see what was done in the past with an applicant. Once the applicant's gone through the hiring process, whatever that process is for you, it can be different for each position. You can really get as customized as you need with whatever that process might be. Once you decide to hire somebody, all of that information is then taken from the application that you've received electronically, and we can add additional information such as their pay, what they're going to be in the organization, their job title, etc. We can add all of that information. We can do a social security number verification to make sure that it's accurate. And then once I click on hire this applicant, now they've become an employee in the system. There's no other data entry that's needed. It's just pulling in the information that's already been submitted. One thing I do want to mention, since we're looking right here at the tax information, is that Scissortail uses geospatial taxation, and what that means is that it's going to take a look at their home city and state, and it's going to apply the necessary taxes. So you don't have to think about, gee, is there a local out in Missouri that I need to think about for this particular employee? It's going to automatically add those. You, of course, have the ability to override those if you know there's something special for your situation, but it will automatically add those, taking into consideration any of the reciprocity agreements that exist between states. So it takes some of the research out of it for you. If you have a lot of remote employees that may have different states and locals that you're not as familiar with, it will automatically do that for you. So I'm not going to hire this person just because it's my sample system, and I'm just going to leave it the way it is. But once you decide to hire somebody, we hire them into the system. They now have the ability to access the system as an employee. So the information, and we'll talk about the employee self-service next, but the information that you can store about your employees is quite vast. If I come into the employees, I have my list of employees, and I'm just going to keep using Josh because I know he's got good data out there. If I can find him, there he is. Again, I choose to have all of my widgets collapsed. You could have yours expanded. But as you see, just here on the main tab, there's quite a few pieces of information that are available. Their basic account information. I can set profiles to decide which holiday, if you have multiple holiday tables, what pay period if you have multiple ones, is there a point system that you have for attendance and fractions, retirement plan, time off, how they're going to be clocking in and out of the system, whether it's a web clock or if they're going to use a physical clock to actually use a badge and scan in and out. So we're defining basically what their employee setup is going to be. And this can change as their needs change. It's very simple to do that. So you can pick from other pay periods if they happen to switch over. We're assigning managers. I can look at the history of things they've done, of course, after they've been employed for a while, their time off accruals and which plans they're subject to for time off if you have multiple plans. Scroll back up here to the top. Base compensation, what they're going to be, how they're going to be compensated if there are multiple factors such as commission or piecework or just regular pay, hourly, etc. Okay. So that, again, is just some basic information here on the home page. On the HR, we've got all of their benefits, training and certifications, performance reviews, any incidents that we need to track, awards, Affordable Care Act information if you're subject to that, what their summary is, and what their timeline is. So this tracks it all in the system, and of course the system does have the ACA reporting available. We'll look at that in just a little bit when we log on as the administrator. So oodles and oodles of information that's available. Again, I'm on as the administrator, so I can see all of this. This is something that you can provide managers limited access to certain information if you want, or even some of your employees might want to be able to, or you might want them to be able to access certain information. All of the payroll information, the direct deposit files or accounts they have on file, training and certification, I've pulled that out as a separate area for employee information so I can see which courses and certifications they are subject to or have been assigned to. So again, that's just kind of a high level of the data that you can store for the employees. I'm going to log in now as an employee. We'll take a look from the employee's perspective so you can see what they have the ability to do. Again, every user has a different dashboard capability. So in this instance, Josh has a list of to-do items. These are going to be all of the forms. And again, in keeping with the new hire example from hire to retire, I'm going to look at some of his new hire forms and open enrollment that he has to go into. But he also has access out here to see his schedule, when he's scheduled to come in and out. He could have out here his timesheet so that he's able to clock in and out directly from the home screen or make adjustments to his timesheet as needed. But again, this is just one example. So if I look at some of his to-do items or forms that he needs to fill out, this is the next step for a new hire. You would welcome them to the companies, maybe using an auto communication, instructing them where to go to log into the employee self-service and complete the rest of their onboarding paperwork. And the onboarding paperwork can vary. It doesn't have to be the same for each position, so you may have something different for your clerical staff than you do for maybe a field employee or a manager or executive level. So those forms can be uploaded into the system, and you provide those forms access to the forms as needed. In the new hire example, I have a handbook authorization. Over here I can look, and I've actually uploaded the handbook so the employee is able to download the handbook, look at it on screen, and come into the form itself and attest to the fact that they have reviewed the handbook. So let me take a moment to talk about the paperless forms that are included with the system. You can upload as many forms as you have, and the nice thing is that you don't have to recreate the wheel with these either. So if you have a very detailed form, or in this example, just a one-pager, but it's already something you've created, you don't have to recreate it. We'll upload the form, and then we're simply throwing in fillable fields. So I can do a signature field, I can do a date field, I can pull in fields that exist in the system like first and last name, so your users don't have to re-enter that information. They're just affirming it when they sign off on the document. You can make fields completely blank, so they're putting in information. It's entirely up to you what needs to happen with the form. So we've uploaded a handbook acknowledgement. We've input the date. This is obviously an older form, but again, demonstration data. And then the name is out here. So the employee just needs to simply sign, click on it using an e-sign, and what will happen from there is it will go into whatever predefined workflow you have asked for it to go into. So this is just one example of a simple workflow. So as the employee creates or fills out their forms, this employee handbook, in this example, once it's completed, if it's approved, it goes on, or approved by the hiring manager, goes on and it generates an email that it's been complete. If it's rejected, it needs to know why it was rejected, and it goes back possibly to the employee, maybe to the hiring manager, whatever. You get to be as specific as you'd like with these workflows. The one thing that I actually just learned about yesterday that I know that some of you may be thinking to yourself is, what if I don't want a notification to come for every specific form? I just want to know when they're hiring, their onboarding forms are complete. Cronus is actually developing an enhancement to this where you can do multiple forms as one workflow. So instead of having a specific workflow for this form, etc., they're going to group them all together. The employee finishes their forms, and then one notification in one workflow is sent so that you're not getting multiple notifications for each form. So that is coming soon and a really nice enhancement to this process. So in case any of you are wondering, like many clients have, that is a future capability that's coming soon. All right. So any of the other forms that you have, I-9 and W-4s, are included with the system, and those are maintained by Kronos, so you don't have to worry about any changes that come down the pike for any of those federal forms that are out there, or state forms for W-4s. Moving on to enrollment. So as a new hire, they would hopefully maybe have to fill in benefits enrollment. This is also available for life events, so we might have a new hire life event or status change for birth of a child or marriage or divorce, whatever. Whatever your qualifying life events are, we'll predetermine those, and we can set those up in the system so that the employees are able to access that as needed. If I click on Start Enrollment, I have my customizable instructions, and then I have tabs for each of the different types of plans. In my example, I have 2 types of medical plans for them to enroll in with multiple options depending upon their dependents. They can see the information about the plan on screen. So if they wanted to just look at this particular one, they can see the basic overview of the benefits enrollment. They can compare them on screen. So Aetna to Blue Cross Blue Shield, and see them side by side for a comparison. You can enforce elect or waive policies so that you don't have to wonder if they mistakenly omitted a selection. You can enforce proof of insurance, so if you want to know or if they have insurance by another provider, you can force that they won't be able to continue until they upload that proof of insurance, and even contingent enrollments where they have to be enrolled in employee life insurance before they can enroll in spouse life insurance. So once they make their selections, they can confirm all of their selections here at the end and then save. This electronically saves their open enrollment and submits it to the benefits enrollment. Whoever's responsible for approving those at your company, they receive that. They're able to approve those or decline those electronically. Notification would be sent back to the employee if desired to let them know that their enrollment has been accepted, or if there's additional information they can request it at that time. So everything is done electronically. Everything's done via web browser, so it makes it easy for everybody to manage that and access it from wherever they are, because let's face it, we know that the staff and the workforce these days is more often than not mobile for a lot of companies. The final piece of benefits enrollment, if you choose to electronically communicate your benefit changes and enrollments to the carriers, we do have an option for that. So you don't have to go out to the carrier websites and manually input the data on each carrier site or with your broker. We can set up direct feeds from Scissortail directly to the carriers to transmit all of the necessary data with the necessary frequency that's required to keep them up to date. Okay. So I'm going to come back here to the home page and take a look at some other information that your employees can access. The first thing everybody wants to say is, or wants to see is, how can I access my pay statements? And they can do so. I have a quick link right here. I can view my pay stub on screen. It is an option for, there is an option to print it, so they can print it if needed. Okay. So they have access to their pay stubs. They have access in the same way to their W-2s, to their W-4. If they want to make changes to that, they can look at their I-9 if you want to give them access to that. They can look at their performance reviews, and we'll talk a bit about that when I log on as the manager, but you have the option for employees to do their own self-assessments. They can look at their timesheet. This is where they would go to clock in or out. We'll talk a bit about that now. So as an employee, they can clock in and out via the system as you see here. I have the clock in, clock out. If you want them to change their job or anything about their time that they're clocking, you can allow them to do so. My sample says change department, but it might also be job code or project number, or it could be company or location, whatever it is that you need them to do. We can give them the ability to clock in and out appropriately. So they can see their time here. If you allow them to, they can see if a missing punch was done or an erroneous punch. They can request a correction that needs to be approved by their supervisor, whoever's responsible for approving their timesheet. But they can see that here, and they can ask for a change request if there's a need for that. They can look at their exceptions. I don't happen to have any as in this particular view. Excuse me. But this would be for them to see if they have late, if they were late, if they were taking long lunches, leaving early, any of those types of exceptions. They can look at the specific breakdown. Oh, and here I can see some. I can see some of those exceptions here. So they can look at their specific breakdown. We can put in rounding rules for timesheet entry. We can put the points associated with attendance infractions. We can do paid or unpaid lunches, whether if you have the policy for if they leave the building more than 30 minutes, then they have to punch in and out. If not, it's an auto deduction. We can set all of those types of rules up so that the employees and managers or whoever's doing time doesn't have to think about that. And then, of course, a summary that they can view and just look at it and overall and say, does this look right or not? Once the employee submits their timesheet, it goes to whatever workflow you've defined, but typically the manager to approve it. The manager will have the same ability to look at the timesheet, make the edits necessary, approve any changes that are required, and then save the timesheet for payroll processing. Payroll administrator then has the ultimate ability to go in, edit the timesheets, and process them for payroll. So if we come back to the home screen here, I mentioned about the time off. So we talked about the timesheet and the full capabilities for the employees to manage those. There's also the ability to request the time off that I mentioned. So we'll take a look at that. They can see their plans that they have available. They can see what their details are of the plan to see what's left, previous requests, and what their statuses were. And then they can request whatever they need for time off. Choosing the plan that they're going to use. I'll choose vacation, and then they can choose the dates and submit their request. Again, requests go to the managers or whoever's responsible to approve. They approve it. It updates the timesheet automatically. So all of this comes full circle for final electronic approval. All right. Also from the employee's perspective, I'm not going to go into the performance reviews here, but you might want to have them getting into documents such as the handbook or company policies or any other types of agreements or things that you want them to have easy access to. So you can upload those documents. I access this through my quick link, and I can see the information and download the necessary documents if I need to. All right. Let's talk about the mobile access, and then I'll move on to what the managers can see. So this you wouldn't normally have in your home page. This is a representation of what the mobile access would look like. So let's use our imaginations and pretend this is our Samsung Galaxy or our iPhone. And as an employee, they can see their time off, their timesheet. They can clock in and out if you allow them to. They can even change their cost center or their project or whatever it is. They can submit their timesheet for approval mobily. They can look at their schedule. So this does have scheduling capabilities and we'll talk about that when we look at the manager's view, but this does have scheduling capabilities. So if you have a staff that changes their schedule, they'll have mobile access to it so they can see this from home if you allow them to do so. They can make requests for time off or leave of absence. They can see their time off balances, and they can see if there's any items that have been assigned to them. And this is just under the time and labor area. Under human resources, they can see some of the same information. They can see their profile. Again, similar information that's available and as the other area. But they can also see their pay stubs electronically. So if they're out looking to purchase a vehicle or have a need to see this information while they're out and about, they can do so there as well. Okay. All right. I'm going to log in now as the manager. We'll take a look at what it looks like from their perspective. So so far we've talked about the recruiting aspect of it. Hiring an employee into the system then gives the administrator and the managers access to all of the employee information to update it. The employee can now access the information to interact with it and complete their onboarding, their benefits enrollment, looking at pay stubs and everything else that they might need to see as an employee. From a manager's perspective, again, access to different information. What's kind of cool with this is, and this is also available in the mobile view for a manager, is there's an in-out board so they can actively see who is in and out of the employees that report to them. So they can kind of keep an eye if they need to. They can easily see, and again, I just happen to have this on my home page for easy access, but this could be entirely different. I can see my attendance exceptions, so if I have an employee that's maybe somebody I have to take a look at more frequently, I can see that here and look at their exceptions. I can look at missing punches and deal with those. So Josh has got some missing punches. I can either let the employee request a change, or as a manager, if you don't want to put that on your employees, as a manager, they can come out here prior to timesheet approval and make the adjustments as needed. Let's see. I have the timesheets waiting my approval. So we talked about the timesheet process for the employees to clock in and out, make the adjustments to their timesheet. It's the same view for the managers. They just have edit capabilities for all of their direct and indirect employees that they're responsible for. So they're able to see the same information and edit as needed. Once they approve this, it's locked in for payroll and it's ready for payroll processing. Again, administrator has final say on that. But if there's anything that needs to happen with this, if they approve it, if they reject it and say, sorry, we need this too, they can do that. They can upload documents if there's something that needs to be attached to this particular timesheet. They can also do reimbursements, and the employees can do this as well. I just didn't cover it when we were on as an employee. But you can allow them to do expense reimbursements, and it's just basic expense. Let me get to the right thing. But they could put in hotels. They could upload receipts, and they can do multiple rows. So They can do whatever they need to do for expense reimbursement. This, again, makes it electronic to have the manager approve it, and it submits it as part of payroll if that's what your process is. All right. So that's enough about timesheets. Managers' capabilities. One thing I do want to touch on, and then we'll log on as the administrator so that we have enough time to look at that piece of it. You can, as a manager or an employee, look at the courses that are available. You can, as a manager or an administrator, mass add training to employees. You can add new courses, and you can assign courses to individuals. So if I want to take a look at this emergency responder course, I can see what type of a class it is, where it's being offered, is there a cost associated with it, are there continuing education, who's the instructor, all of the things that you would need to track about a particular course. You can track that in the system and then assign it to one or many or all employees. You can manage when they expire, send out new reminders for a class to be retaken. So the annual sexual harassment, that is something that you could automate using Scissortail HCM and have the employees take and track in the system. The other thing that we can do as managers and again as employees, if you decide, whoops, that's the wrong one, if you decide to give them access to it, is the performance reviews. I just have to find it. Come into here. As a manager or an employee, you can fill out an assessment, and I'll use, I think this one's got the information in it, okay? This, again, can be tailored to your specific needs, so whatever your core values are, if you have company-wide goals, department goals, individual goals, we can predefine those for each employee if they vary, and then you can set scores weighted if they are in the different areas. You can set scores up for the performance reviews and then allow your employees to do their own assessment, allowing one or multiple reviewers to do their assessment, adding any additional notes or documentations that go along with it, and at the end we see a summary of what those particular results are. So this is nice because it allows the managers to do this again all electronically. It gives the ability for the automated workflow if there are multiple approvers. And then you can also tie compensation to this or even performance improvement plans so that you can, if you do have pay for performance, all of that can be automated and approved and then update the employee's pay if needed. So that's kind of an overview of the manager's perspective, things that they might need to do. They have access to the same documentation. They have access to reports. You could give them access to any of the standard reports that come with it, or as we talked about earlier, all screens become reports. So there are a whole host of things that they could possibly look at: overtime, adjusting pay, payroll information, if it's something that they're needing to look at, and so forth. Okay. So I'm going to log in as the administrator, and we'll finish up logged in as Kathy. We have talked about the benefits enrollment. We've talked about most of the HR areas of concern. OSHA incidents can be tracked here. So any of the workers' comp claims, OSHA, that's fully supported within the system. Benefits enrollment, benefits census reports, ACA tracking we touched on when we looked at the employee's information, that it does have the full reporting capabilities and the 1094, 1095 forms. Everything that we need to do about managing their time is available in the system as are time off requests. So if you have an administrator that handles all of that, it can be done at the same time. So again, I've got my sample homepage here with multiple items. What I'm going to go into now just to take a look at is the payroll processing. So I'm going to go into my next open payroll, which is the August 11th. And I've got a little link here. And what that gives me is the quick links to the payroll processing. So I can go into any area of the payroll process. So if I've left it and come back, it's easy access. Payroll prep process is where I'm going to start. And this can be customized to your specific process. So this is just one example. And the nice thing with the payroll process is that it gives you the step-by-step. So you don't have to wonder, gee, did I forget to do something? So I can go here to time prep. And this is another process there where I'll be reviewing the timesheets, approving the timesheets, checking for anything that managers might have missed, adding things if needed. And then when I've completed my timesheet information, I can put a check mark here, and it tells me I've completed it, what day and time. So this is a nice audit trail for where you're at within the process. And speaking of audit trails, everything in the system is fully audited, so you're always able to see if somebody's pay changed or anything about the employee record changed. You can look back and see who changed it and when, what the values were. Those types of audit trails are reportable as well, so you could run an audit report if you needed to. So time prep, my next step in my process is to complete any employee changes that may have occurred. Once I'm done with that, I can initiate my payroll. You're able to have multiple pay stubs. So if you have different data that you put out on a bonus, maybe you have a message that you put on your bonus pay stub, and this is the same for direct deposit or a check. You might want to put a specific message out for the bonus one or have it have different information. Entirely up to you. The idea is you can have whatever you want, really. So I'm going to use the regular one. I'm going to calculate all of my employees. Once I hit Create Now, it's going to create my pay statements based upon the timesheet entries, or if it's a salaried employee, it's just going to pull in their normal hours. And then I have the ability to go through and make adjustments to the actual pay stubs if I want to. I'm going to skip down here to Add Edit Batches, and we're going to take a look at the information within the batch. So these are all of the entries that I have. I've got one line item for each employee, or I might have multiple line items if I want to have multiple checks or allocate time differently. So I can see that Kathy has 80 hours. Here's her pay. And then I can see multiple columns. Again, whatever I choose to see on the screen is what will come up. So I've got regular and overtime and bonus. If there's a need for a different pay stub type, I can add a row and make a bonus pay stub, whatever I need to do. I can make adjustments here. So if I see 80 and I say, nope, that was actually 70, I can make those adjustments. When I recalculate, it'll update my regular pay. As I make adjustments to this, I can then see what the changes are on the pay stub. Now, keep in mind, payroll has not been finalized. So this is a nice preview of what's going to happen. So you can make the adjustments to the timesheets and the entries as needed, adding reimbursements or adding bonuses or whatever, and you can see the end result of the pay stub or the paycheck. Okay, so that's, as you go, those are adjustments that you can see. So if we need to add additional items, I can click on the Add button. It'll add a line item for me, so I can now say, okay, Ann's going to get a $500 bonus. Okay. Once I save and update payroll, that's when it redoes those calculations, and I can preview what my changes have done. So I'm going to come back, actually, to the quick links. So once I've completed that, I can, again, look at my pay stubs. One of the other things that we can do is create alerts for each payroll. And this can be something that recurs every single pay period, or it can be a one-off that, you've got to remember to do tuition reimbursement 6 months from now. So put a reminder on that employee's record so that you make sure that you don't forget. So I have a bonus reminder to add to Paul. I'll go to the timesheet, do that bonus, and then come in here, mark it as completed, and move on with my payroll. The idea of the alert is that it won't let you continue with your payroll process until you've satisfied the alert. So it's a nice check and balance. Excuse me. Once I have done everything that I need to for the alerts and the edits, I close the payroll. It is still not finalized when it's open for processing. One sec. I have to close the batch. I'm going to close my payroll now. It's going to lock the pay statements. The payroll is not finalized as of yet, but now what you can do is review all of those reports. So you can take a look at the payroll register. You can review this particular report. I can look at different views of that particular report by account, summary, labor distribution, GL report, retirement plan, accruals for vendors, which this system does also allow you to do vendor payments. So if you want to pay a 401k provider or a child support or any of the garnishments that you've withheld, you can directly pay those vendors via ACH or check through the payroll process, which is kind of cool. The payroll recap and funding report is a really nice report. It just gives you a complete picture, the payroll overview, who's gotten checks, what's your total liability, taxes, any vendor payments that will be made, any of the basic GL information, and just so you can kind of compare. I know a lot of companies, you're looking for just a roundabout same number as previous payroll, make sure there's nothing crazy out of whack, so you can just see a nice comparison here. So really nice report to have. Once everything is to your satisfaction, you've gone back, you've made any adjustments that are necessary, then you can just do your final payroll. It will finalize, locking all the information in. At CS3, we'll receive a notification that you have completed your payroll. We will send all of the necessary tax reports over to the tax filing service, who will take care of any of the local, state, and federal tax filing that is necessary for this particular pay run. You will receive the completed and finalized confirmation reports that that's been done. So tax filing is no longer something that you would have to do on your own. All right, and that is all I have. So Sherry, if you'd like to see if there's any questions, we've got about 8 minutes left.
We do have a few questions, Jessica. Let me go ahead and move controls back over to me.
Okay.
And I'm going to share my screen again. Sorry, let me close this. And you can see my screen now?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so one of the questions that came in, it says, are there any connections to job search sites for posting during recruitment, such as Monster?
They do have the ability, there's a new connection called eQuest that will allow it to connect to some of the sites. I don't have a list specifically, but I can get that for you and email it to you if you want to take down, Sherry, who that is.
And can you discuss how you handle multiple company payrolls?
Multiple companies are handled a couple of ways. If they have the same EIN, you can bring them into a payroll and process them together. If they have separate EINs, they would need to be processed separately.
Okay. And then please confirm that I can run paperless, no printing of checks or pay stubs.
Well, yeah, no printing necessary of either. But if it was a check, you would of course have to print it. But yeah, you can go completely paperless.
Okay. And then can you discuss vendor payments? You mentioned what vendors do you pay?
They would be any vendor that you set up in the system. So it could be a state child support. It could be a 401k provider. It could be a service provider, like a broker.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, those were the questions that we had. I want to thank everybody again for taking this time out of your schedule. Today's webcast has been recorded, and you'll be receiving a link via email if you want to share this with other members of your team or if you want to revisit anything that Jessica shared today. John Burke, who is on our sales team, will be reaching out to each of you to answer any additional questions that you have. So we hope everybody has a great day and stay cool during these summer months.